Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who, we started off the Dalek invasion of Earth. What could have that been about?
Gee, I wonder. Very conveniently, they do land on Earth, right in London, as a matter of fact, but it's 200 years in the future.
Yeah.
The Daleks have somehow returned. We still don't understand exactly how that happened, but I'm assuming we'll find that out in the next 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning, very conveniently, part of a bridge or something collapses onto the TARDIS, so they can't get back in it.
Yeah.
Consequently, they're stuck. And then they meet up with the Resistance, and all sorts of things are happening here. And I had a thought this morning when I was going over mentally the notes from the last 3 episodes. We have established before that the Daleks, I think, Terry Nation was trying to kind of metaphorically use the Daleks as a substitute for Nazism.
Yeah.
And the first time we saw them, of course, they were on their home planet, but here, this is giving him a chance to show exactly how the Resistance in Europe worked against the Nazis. Not only were there forces like the United States and Great Britain and Russia fighting against them, but there were they called it the French underground, and there were Scandinavian countries, the Dutch and the Danish, and probably several other countries were working against the Nazis, and that's very similar to what we're seeing here. Is these people doing whatever they can in these little groups to try to find a way to stop the Daleks from taking over.
Right. And on the whole thing of, how are the Daleks back, they did sort of mention that this is potentially the Daleks in their past, before they met the Doctor on Skaro. So, however that works, I honestly think that makes it a bit more confusing, but that is sort of the explanation they give for that. So, yeah, this time around we will be moving on to the final 3 parts of the Dalek invasion of Earth. Of course, our exploits with the Daleks won't end here, because next week we will have even more Daleks.
Oh, I'm so dreading this.
Yeah.
Now, I understand all the comments have been the second movie is so much better than the first one, but, that's that's a very low bar to hurdle.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, because that one I think is from 1966, so that would be well after this, which is in 64, so that might honestly be around the time when Troughton was about to take over, so it will be interesting to see. But that's next week, so that's going to be just a ton of fun, I know.
Painful is the adjective that comes to mind.
Yes, but a fun kind of painful.
Okay, that's a little too twisted even for me.
Well,
let's move on.
Well, at least we'll feel something, I guess. There is that. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much that. So we should go ahead and get right into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go.
Yeah, that's very convenient.
So he used acid on a bomb? Is it the best idea?
Depends on what kind of explosive it was using.
Yeah.
Throw it in the river. That's very much like a German hand grenade from World War II.
I wonder what's more comfortable, being the actor that has to pull that, or being the actor in the Dalek suit.
Notice that there's a lot of slack on that line, so I would imagine they're not really pulling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine being inside that Dalek was pretty warm.
The helmet does nothing for them.
I'd like to meet this man, Ashton. He could probably help me out of the camp. I need to get back to London.
London?
He's got friends there.
I suppose you know they destroyed it.
No Daleks about as I can see. They must have thought Dawn was on
That's like the 5th time where it's like, oh, well, surely your friends are dead. Never happens. So he should be like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Must have been interesting filming this indoors.
Well,
Well, of course, it's no use against the Daleks, but it will stop anyone else.
No spares.
No. Found this gun. And that's all that was in it.
You know, if you aim for the eye stalk, you can probably knock a Dalek out.
Jenny, there's a whole bunch of them ahead of us. Shall we jump, Fritz? No. I'm going through.
Oh, this ought to be fun.
Ooh! Well, you at least got one.
Fritz! There's a saucer overhead. Jump for it!
Oh no, the model.
What was that thing we saw out there?
It's called a slither.
Slither? What's that?
The Black Dalek, he's a commandant of the camp. Regards it as a sort of pet.
You mean it's on some sort of a guard duty, eh?
The Daleks have a pet. That's terrifying.
Clay's no good.
Well, so much for that.
It's a sheer drop. We'll have to go back. The Slitherian! It's coming straight for us!
All right.
Well, that was 30 minutes of padding, it seemed like.
That was definitely a Hartnell had the week off. So
Story doesn't advance much.
it's
Susan goes down into the sewers and comes back out of the sewers. Ian and his friend go get some help, and then, seriously. Obviously, yes, Hartnell took the week off. Hopefully they will explain why he passed out for no apparent reason other than he needed the week off.
yeah. You know, I don't know. How are we gonna beat the Daleks in 2 episodes? Like, this is kind of it. We only got 2 episodes left, but we don't seem to be any closer to actually beating them. So
Yeah. Makes you wonder if this is a War of the Worlds type thing where, the Daleks come down but ultimately succumb to just, Earth microbes. They catch the common cold and all die.
maybe. I don't know. That seems too easy. So
Yeah. But yeah, there was not a lot of action. A lot of, cliffhangers. Here's poor Susan dangling over the side of the precipice, whatever it was. And for what? It really didn't seem to make much sense. It really does seem to be a very padded episode.
yeah. And then the Daleks just have a beast. Like, what is it? Where did it come from? Is it part Dalek? Is it from Earth? Was it a mutation from the zoos? Like, what is this thing? You can't just say, oh, the Daleks have a pet. Like, what does that mean?
Well, let's find out.
It's coming straight for us!
You make it fall down.
Hey!
Not you. Oh, that works too, I guess.
Let's get out of here! No,
And there goes that.
no, hang on a minute. Somebody might have heard us.
It's like the Rancor in Star Wars. You just expect some guy to walk out crying.
In return, you can sleep here for the night. You can make your bed out of this cloth. Come on, child, come on. You'll be nice and comfortable there.
If I was Barbara, I'd sleep with one eye open. I do not trust these two.
Stopping! We must be near the bottom. Yes, look! Lights! Let's get out of here, laddie, before this bucket tips up. It's a bit of a drop here. Well, about 12 feet. Let's go. Come on.
It's kind of fun to see like how they film some things that they can't do on location.
Yeah.
It's like, the 2 of you sitting there, we'll shake the camera and we'll move these shapes in front of a light. It'll work.
You will follow me, both of you. Do not try to escape, or you will be exterminated. Move.
I think that's the first time they've said that in this entire serial.
Yeah.
I thought she was just going to get the Robomen. She actually went and got a Dalek.
There's another great casting call. We need all of the thin, emaciated, scruffy-looking people that we can find.
Some fresh fish. You want some fresh fish? I've got some. Oh, no, not for me. I didn't want it. Not for me. No.
It's a really good idea to sneak up on people in this day and age.
You would have to act immediately on what I told you. I must speak to someone in authority.
The Black Dalek will see you, but if you are lying, you will be killed. Follow me.
Was that like him rolling his eye?
I think he was communicating with the higher-ups.
Well,
That will enable us to pilot the planet anywhere in the universe. All that remains is to put into position. Arm the device.
Oops!
Device
Uh-oh.
now armed. Set capsule in motion. Hands over control to close position.
Ian is inside the bomb.
well,
Okay.
well, we finally know their plan.
Going to pilot the Earth throughout the galaxy, or perhaps even the universe,
Yeah,
to do whatever they want to with it.
they're pretty ambitious in the second serial with the Daleks.
That does seem kind of unusual. However, again, if you think about it, this is exactly what the Nazis were trying to do. They were trying to develop the hydrogen or the atomic bomb first, and that's why a lot of those guys like Albert Einstein and I have become death. I can't remember. Never can remember. Oppenheimer, yeah, and the rest of them were doing the Manhattan Project so that they could get the bomb before the Germans did.
Yeah. And this is interesting because now I do remember there's an episode in modern Doctor Who where the Daleks actually like steal a bunch of planets and move them across the universe. And the Doctor actually says, this has kind of happened before. Someone else tried to move the Earth. And then that's when he realizes, oh, it's the Daleks again. Only they actually did move the Earth somewhere else.
Now, the title of that episode, The Waking Ally.
I'm not sure about that.
Don't see who was particularly awakened. They haven't gained any new allies that I can tell.
No.
So, I don't know. Well, certainly better than, episode 4.
Yeah, that just seems to be the thing. Episode 4 is not a good... If there's more than 4 parts, episode 4 is generally not the best episode.
All right, well, let's get to the conclusion.
Yeah. Also, I'm just going to assume that Susan, being Gallifreyan, is actually older than she appears, so it's not a 16-year-old girl and what looks like a 35-year-old man.
Well, I'm sure he's supposed to be much younger. You have to understand, too. This is again, something that you haven't seen a lot of movies from the late 50s and 60s. But teenagers in movies from this time period were often played by people in their mid-20s. I don't even know if you've seen Grease, the musical with John Travolta.
Is some of it, yeah.
Okay, all right. So John Travolta, who was probably in his late 20s, even early 30s, was playing, Danny Zuko, who was supposed to be a high school senior.
Yeah.
So, that's a very common thing here. You couldn't actually get, decent 15, 16-year-old kids to play teenagers on TV and in movies, so they always got somebody older. So, yes, I'm assuming that, what is his name?
David. Yeah.
Is supposed to be 18, 19 years old. But, he's got the pompadour hair and everything, so, yes, he looks a lot older. But then again, Carol Ann Ford was probably not an actual teenager. If she was probably 19 or so, playing
Yeah.
down to 16.
But she looks more the part. And I guess you could say, if you wanted to make an argument, well, maybe War has aged David, more than he should have. But, I mean, because that's the thing. She does look like a teenager. And so it's like, all right, I will just either, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that he's supposed to be younger, or the other benefit of the doubt that she's actually older. Like, who knows, maybe she could be 75 and still look like that, with her Time Lord genetics and stuff, which they haven't done at this point yet, but they haven't even thought that through. Yeah. It does make me wonder when the Time Lords will start on this show, because they will be in the second Doctor at some point. So I wonder when we're first going to be introduced to the Time Lords.
Well, at some point, as this show is gaining in popularity, somebody must have realized, oh crap, we don't have a backstory.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to, sure, well, let's keep some of it mysterious, but at some point we're going to have to start putting together some kind of infrastructure that explains all of this. Otherwise, it's just going to, wobble out of control.
Which, I mean, the show is a question. Doctor Who, which, they can't answer specifically. They'll never answer what his name is. But it's we got to know, who was this guy? This dude, why does he have a police box that travels through time and stuff, So,
if I recall correctly, the proper phrase is wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty much that. So,
by the way, interesting film in the mid 60s, I think, where they were doing very similar to this, trying to drill down into the core of the Earth. And when they actually did that, it actually started this gigantic crack in the Earth. In fact, the film, I think, was called Crack in the Earth. And at the end, it actually blew a gigantic chunk of South Asia and Africa and the Indian Ocean out into space and created a second moon.
Is in position over the fissure. Release it.
poor Ian.
Pull the wires. Do something.
Start kicking it.
There you go. Short circuit it. Now, except for the fact that it's a little too close up, you got to admit that the graphics here are much better than they were, for example, in Marinus.
Yeah.
The miniature work is much better here. Yank them all out.
Yeah, is he trying to do something specific? Just yank everything and get out of there.
Seems to be trying to put all the wires together and short circuit something.
Yeah.
Whoa! Again, notice the slack on the rope.
Yeah.
Exterminate him! Exterminate him! Stay where you are!
Yeah, follow me down
no.
this rope.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's okay, there was a slope.
You must be getting near their control room, Barbara. What do you want me to do?
Luke Skywalker in the Death Star.
Yeah.
Try to find the main control panel. Do as much damage as you can. I'll try and keep them occupied.
Silence!
We can still hear you.
You will.
The plan will run parallel with the Boston Tea Party. Naturally, you already have information about this.
Wait! Why have I not been informed of this? There has been no information.
She's gonna name every
Good.
revolt she
That
can,
means the
confuse
first part
them.
of the plan is a success. Now, I warn you. General Lee and the 5th Cavalry are already forming up to attack from the north side of the crater. The second wave, Hannibal's forces, will of course come in from the southern Alps. The third wave...
Attention! Attention! I will arrange for their extermination.
Oh, it's actually being a suction
Now,
cup.
secure them. As soon as the repairs
Go in.
I'll say one thing, Doc. Life's never dull with you around.
Thank you, but don't call me Doc. I prefer Doctor. Mine.
Can't tell you how many times I've said Doc in these videos.
He's gonna block the bomb from going down the shaft.
I guess.
have to be bundles of logs there. Oh, that damn peripheral vision.
Yeah.
That was a close one. Apparently things are on the move.
That one looks straight at him.
Yeah.
Turn on the Daleks, kill the Daleks. Do you hear?
Them lifting up that Dalek already makes us better than the last climax we had.
Volcanic eruption.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was Paricotin in Mexico, which would have erupted in the 50s or early 60s.
Saucers were caught in the upward thrust of that explosion.
Well, that's convenient.
What were you going to...
Where? Oh, my dear Susan, you're hurt.
Well, it's not me. It's this shoe of mine. Look, it's worn right out.
Oh, dear,
Must have been
dear,
that journey back from the mine.
Dear, I shall have to mend this, shan't I, now?
Oh, don't worry, Grandfather.
Oh, no worry, my child. No, when I finish with this, it'll look as good as new.
Really, it's not worth it. I've got dozens of other pairs.
Yes. My family have always been associated with land.
Oh, where do they live?
Well, they live a long way from here.
Take a hint, Ian.
Yeah.
But I love you, Susan. And I want you to marry me.
All right, easy there.
Listen, Susan, please. I've double-locked the doors. You can't get in. Now move back, child, where I can see you. I want you to belong somewhere, to have roots of your own. With David, you'll be able to find those roots. One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Goodbye, Susan. Goodbye, my dear.
Oh, there it is. That's an interesting way to say goodbye.
They're just barely into the second season.
Yeah. Didn't even leave an extra shoe behind.
Be happy about it, Susan. It's what you said you wanted.
I mean,
That's her key.
I guess. Alrighty. That is our first companion exit. You know, I get why she wouldn't be necessarily happy at this particular moment.
Well, I mean, I understand the sadness of, her grandfather leaving and everything. But
Yeah.
once she does that, when she turns to take his hand, in my opinion, it would have been nice for her to smile. She can still be sad, but to look at him and say, I've chosen this. This is what I do want. And let's go remake the Earth. That would have been nice.
Yeah. Of course, then there's also, it's like, the sadness of, okay, her grandfather left and, left her behind, kind of. And it's also, too, because, he says, like, oh, one day I will come back here. But right now, he has no way of actually getting back here unless the TARDIS brings him here by chance, basically. So, Yeah. So it's like, I get it, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's our first companion exit, and it's very odd that it's not Ian and Barbara that are leaving first, because they weren't supposed to be companions in the first place.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's interesting, you know, from what we saw in An Adventure in Space and Time, you know, I think her line was like, you know, I can't just keep screaming at monsters forever.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, yeah, that's true. She's not given a lot. Even in the invasion, like, she's still not given a ton.
Yeah.
You know, unless it was with David, really.
Yeah.
So, I'm not entirely sure if I buy their romance, though. That was also one thing where I was like, I guess, I don't know. It's like, you know, when at the end it's like, oh, you know, I want you to marry me. It's like, it's been like 3 days. Like, take it easy there.
Okay, but it's, you know, it has to be telescoped for the writing aspect and the fact that they've only got 6 episodes for her to do this.
Yeah,
but they have been setting it up. You know,
that's true. It has been set up a bit throughout the previous episodes with her kind of coming into conflict with the Doctor. So, so yeah, it definitely does work. It is kind of interesting, like, thinking of, like, okay, so what's the show going to be like now? And it's like, okay, you know, we kind of say like, oh, well, she's given nothing to do. It's like, it is still going to be an odd dynamic, I feel like, without her there, where it's just the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara. It's like, she was kind of like, I don't know, like the middleman between the two of them and the Doctor. So, I don't know. We can go ahead and head on into the notes. The first thing I wrote down was the firebomb. I mean, that happened, you know. But that was kind of interesting, watching him, you know, disable it and stuff, and using acid on it, which I still kind of think, like, you're using acid on a firebomb? Is that really, like, what you should do?
Well, again, we're talking about 1964. There is probably some kind of, I hate to use the word primitive, but let's face it, you know, this is World War II leftover munitions type stuff. Yeah, it wouldn't have been incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
Especially if it was put together by these, you know, robo-men. So, the fact that he was carrying acid around with him seemed kind of unusual.
Like, just in case, I've got acid if we need it. Which at that point, you know, they have the whole thing about, oh, the bomb, and it's like, oh, the bomb, it didn't work and stuff. It's like, why aren't you throwing acid at them then? Like, just throw bottles of acid. That should, if you hit the eye stalk, that'll probably do some damage.
I figured, why didn't he just pick it up and throw it into the river?
Yeah.
A firebomb in the middle of the Thames, although considering the pollution, it might have caught the Thames on fire, but
maybe.
But still, that way they would have had the Daleks would have said, well, you know, we saw the explosion or whatever, but it wouldn't have done the damage that they thought.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was, again, that seemed to be a somewhat set-up cliffhanger that was disposed rather quickly.
Yeah.
Now, of course, and again, you mentioned the word firebomb in Great Britain in 1964. Just remember that just 20 years earlier, London had been firebombed by the Nazis. You know, the Luftwaffe was coming over during the Blitz and just leveling parts of the city. So, I mean, that would have had a very strong reaction, especially to older Britons who were watching the show during that time. You know, that's the Blitz to them.
That's true. Let's see. We had the Slither. Again, that was there. We never got an explanation other than it's the Dalek's pet. I don't know. Like, I'm wondering, like, will that ever come back? I almost feel like it would be hilarious if they brought it back in a modern episode.
Yeah.
Like, you know, 50 years later, one of the writers was finally like, oh yeah, there was a Slither. We should bring that back. You know, and it almost makes me wonder, like, you know, and because, you know, next week we're watching the movie. It makes me wonder how much of this is going to be in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, for all the faults of the last movie, unfortunately it was a very faithful adaptation of the first Dalek serial. That's not a good thing, because that wasn't a particularly great serial, but it's like, yeah, how much is going to be in the next one, you know? Like, is the Slither going to be that? Maybe they have an explanation, you know? Yeah. That would be interesting, because, like, even looking at it, like, I couldn't, like, figure out what we were looking at. Some weird, like, it kind of looked like, you know, what we would see in, like, the Three Doctors and everything, those weird squid things. Yeah. But it looked like it had the head of a bull. And it's like, okay, it's got horns, and then it just died. And it's like, what was this other than just weird? Yeah. Because that wasn't, I don't even think that was a cliffhanger. That just happened. Yeah. So,
I got nothing on that one.
Yeah.
Because I looked at it and went, no.
Yeah, like, where did this come from? Why did the Daleks have it? Like, is it from Skaro? Or, because I guess there were weird things on Skaro, other than the Daleks and the Thals. So it's like,
well, yeah, wasn't there some kind of swamp that they tried to go through, and one guy went down to get some water and got pulled in by something?
Yeah, so it could have been that, I guess. Like, because I guess that's, you know, on Skaro, maybe it was all the radiation that mutated everything, but the Thals survived pretty much intact, and the Daleks mutated, but then they became the Daleks. So yeah, I guess it could be something from there. I don't know. It was just odd, and then it died, and it's like, well, that's that. All right. We had the alligators, which, again, really only lasted for a cliffhanger moment that ended in the same episode.
Yeah.
Because, like, as she was hanging on there, I was like, okay, David is not, like, getting over here fast enough. And it's like, okay, so they're probably going to cliffhanger here. And then Tyler came in, shot the alligator, and then they saved her. And I was like, okay. And then there was the cliffhanger. I think the cliffhanger then wasn't it Ian being in the weapons? So
up in the bomb, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that. I don't know.
Again, there seemed to be a lot of padding throughout this entire serial.
Yeah.
It easily could have been done in 5, and with some judicious. I mean, again, if they had the time, they could have edited it down to 4 and made it fast moving, well paced. It's a great storyline. You know, you got the Daleks who are literally trying to steal the Earth.
Yeah, that's. Which, again, that almost seemed like, oh yeah, that's the thing at the end, though. We only get that really in part 6, so... Yeah, that could have been really interesting, but they didn't do enough with it. And I know, again, we are in the year 2020, and we are taking a very, critical, analytical look at something from 1964, and maybe that's not... that's obviously not the mindset they intended to watch these episodes.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, I don't know, like, either this could have been an episode shorter, or we could have just done a few other things throughout these episodes to make them a little bit better.
Well, I will say this for it. Usually when you have a sequel, and obviously somebody said during the first season, the Daleks were so tremendously successful for our ratings, we need to bring them back. This was not just a repeat of the first episode. This was a completely new thing.
Yeah.
You got the Daleks coming in trying to literally bore a hole into the Earth to get to the core, to steal the planet and pilot it away.
Yeah.
Taking over the humans. Again, not truly explaining how the Daleks got there in the first place, but...
yeah. Well...
But again, I give them credit for not simply, rehashing the original serial. They come up with a new plot. Again, there were some things here that, again, are extremely reminiscent of World War II. You got the Nazis and the resistance going on and everything like that. But again, there was a lot of extraneous stuff. Again, the Slither and some of that other stuff that just going down into the sewers made not a whole lot of sense, because they seemed to go into it and then went right back out of it and went back down into it and came back out of it. So anyway, if they were to remake it, even with second, third, fourth Doctor, again, you would hope that they would have enough time to not only write the entire serial, but then to go back and to edit it. I think this one needed some judicious editing.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you're right. They could have had just another serial where, well, they just happened to get back to Skaro and we see something else. Maybe one of those Daleks escaped and now we just got to go deal with that again. But instead, it's like, okay, it's like, no, now we're dealing with Daleks on Earth that have taken over in this time, and they can, they have all these, space travel capabilities and everything. So it is a very different episode. And I mean, I guess it's better. It is a better set of episodes than the first time around. It's only one episode shorter, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. There is a lot of padding in this.
What else?
I wrote down the house that Barbara ended up in with those two. I mean, I guess that was a good way of, getting Barbara to the Dalek command. But, that it was kind of odd. But it also worked to show, when they say it's like, people will, kill you just to get a little bit of food. And it's like, well, here are people that are just trying to survive. Yeah. So they will...
Again, that's, very similar to World War II. There were a lot of collaborators, people who simply said, look, the Nazis are too powerful, you can't resist them, so we'll stay alive. Now, a lot of those people, when the war was over, if they were still alive, they had some very nasty things happen to them. So, that they didn't show that here. That would have been an interesting little, just a 5-10 second vignette right at the end where you see the people going over to the shed and dragging the women out, to punish them for being collaborators. But again, that may be way too deep for what the program was trying to do in 1964.
Probably. Let's see. I did write down Susan and David's relationship. It did, like as we were going through the first 3 episodes, I was kind of thinking like, okay, is this where like we're gonna be leaving Susan? I kind of remembered, that sort of speech, that speech that the doctor gives at the end. It's like, oh, one day I will come back to this place. Like we've heard that like a couple times, like in An Adventure in Space and Time. I think before the 5 Doctors started, they played that clip again. So we've heard that, and it's like, okay, so I was kind of thinking like, okay, is this the time then that we're going to be leaving Susan? And I like through the first 3 episodes, I was like, I don't know if I buy their relationship at all. Mainly because they didn't have a relationship in the first 3 episodes, and then it sort of started to grow a little bit, and it's like, I don't know if like this is worth it. It's like, because it's not just like, okay, well, we'll leave her behind with someone she loves, and she can settle down. It's like, yeah, but she's settling down in the worst possible time when they have to rebuild the entire Earth.
But then again, she did say that at some point during the serial. She said, think of that opportunity where you get a chance to rebuild the entire world.
Yeah.
And she's been setting it up. I want to settle down somewhere. I'm tired of roaming around. Obviously, more than just the year that we've seen her. Obviously, she and her grandfather have been doing this for years and years before this.
Yeah.
But so I think, again, telescoped for time, it's perfectly acceptable. It didn't bother me as much as it bothers you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It's not bad per se. It's just like, okay, I get we got to move this along in order to justify her leaving the TARDIS, basically. So, yeah, it works out.
Did Carol Ann Ford come back for either the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors?
She was in the 5 Doctors, so and I think she was even in Dimensions in Time, right at the end, after the show had already been canceled and stuff. So that's the 30th anniversary. So she did come back after that. I do remember,
but I'm just wondering, because the 5 Doctors, that would have been what, 15, 20 years later.
That was the 20th anniversary.
All right, so theoretically, the Doctor did see her again, even though not necessarily,
Yeah.
2164.
Yeah, 2164. Instead, that would have been on Gallifrey in the Death Zone and all that. So, and also, when we watched that, because that was before we were going through the seasons. But it was still kind of cool when it's like, oh, the 5th Doctor gets to see Susan again. It's like, oh, that's kind of nice. They didn't do much with that, but that was kind of nice. Yeah. So, yeah. And, of course, I will still give the show both benefits of the doubt that there is something that makes it not weird with how old they are. It's like, okay, either he's just an older guy playing a younger guy, or technically Susan is older because she is alien. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And it was also kind of funny when Susan says, like, oh, Grandpa's getting old, you know? And it's like, it's just ironic because we know it's like, yeah, he is getting old, but we know he'll regenerate and he'll just keep going until, like, now they say with Capaldi's doctor, it's like he's supposedly over 2,000 years old by now. So it's like, yeah, he's getting old. He'll get better, though. It's like, yeah. So I just thought that was kind of funny. But, of course, we know going forward because we know the show keeps going. They didn't know at the time of the regeneration or anything. Yeah. So
I thought it was interesting. One of the last comments, someone said, although it was planned for 52 episodes, it was only funded for like the first 13.
Yeah.
And then they just had to make do and stretch it out as best they could from there. I guess it wasn't until after the first Dalek serial that they began to realize that it was going to actually keep going, at least for a year or two.
Right. Well, I think they even showed that in Space and Time when it's like, I think they had only they were only going to film through like the first 4 episodes of the Dalek serial, and then it was just going to be done. But that first one was so successful that they were like, all right, let's keep going. And then obviously the show, must keep getting better and better and better because now, not only it's like, okay, we're still going, the Daleks are back, and now we have all the money to, do all these, on location shots and everything.
Yeah, that was definitely more location shots than anything we've seen before.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, the Daleks' master plan in this to remove the core of the Earth. So, they said it's like, oh, they want the magnetic core. We were kind of speculating, okay, is that because they need it for power or something like that? It's like, no, they don't even want the Earth's magnetic core. They just want to get rid of it so that they can put in something else so that they can pilot the Earth around the universe. To what end, I don't know.
Well, they did say something about the Earth was the only one that had this specific thing. That I think the Doctor said that, and I can't remember if the Daleks actually said it too. So, in order to do what they needed to do and not be confined to the tiny little flying saucers, they needed, to take a planet, and this was the only planet that seemed to be available. So after, years and years and years of planning, they managed to get to the Earth, and now they're putting their plan into action, and then it all falls apart. But but they needed the Earth in order to, continue the master plan of the Daleks taking over the universe and eliminating anything that was not as perfect as they are.
Right. Well, because you would also wonder, it's like, well, why didn't they just do this on Skaro then? Why? Because it's like, why wouldn't they do this on their own planet? It's like, why did they specifically come to Earth? It's like, is the Earth the only one with a magnetic core? I don't think that's how science works, but it's something. There's some reason why it would be Earth. Because, you can't even say, like, well, they know of Earth because they had met the Doctor before, but they say in this, they hadn't met the Doctor at this point in their timeline. So, of course, then that goes into a whole thing once, Genesis of the Daleks, technically they did meet the Doctor before, but then none of them remember that. So, but, of course, then that is the problem of we are watching the second season with knowledge of future Dalek episodes that we've seen, or future episodes in the modern series, like all these different things that we have knowledge of that at this point do not exist within the story. So.
And again, to be fair, I would have been 12, 13 years old when this aired. I probably wouldn't have thought of any of that. All I would have thought of was, it's a great story. The Daleks are back. They're trying to steal the Earth, and the Doctor thwarts them. And again, I look at Ian sticking some conveniently placed bundles of logs in the tube to stop the bomb before it gets to the core. Again, I know that now, but I don't think the 12, 13-year-old me would have had a second thought about that.
Like, if that bomb is traveling so fast down to get to the Earth's core, should it not snap those logs and keep going? But
one would think.
Yeah, one would think, but
unless they weren't logs, maybe they were rusty pipes or something. But they certainly look like logs.
Yeah, so I don't know. I did write down revolt I did like Barbara basically filibustering to them. It's like she's naming literally every revolt she can think of in order to confuse them because they don't know Earth history.
The Boston Tea Party and Hannibal crossing the Alps and General Lee at the Greater at Petersburg and the revolt of India against the British. Those were at least 4 that she mentioned.
Well, no, because they questioned her when she said the Indian revolt, and then she said the Red Indians, so that would be the Native Americans.
Yeah.
It would have been funny if the Daleks were like, why don't you just say Native Americans? Like, oh, you know that? Like,
that wasn't a thing. Trust me,
No.
in 1964, the term Native American would have never crossed anyone's mind.
Right.
They were Indians.
Right. But yeah, I just thought that was funny, just her trying to just wait as long as she can, trying to confuse them.
But once again, we see the advantages of being a history teacher.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, advantage of being a science teacher is Ian was, messing with all those chords and somehow got out of that bomb. I don't know how, but he did, so...
A conveniently placed trapdoor in the bottom.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, we're gonna get to a point where, we keep saying it's like, oh, the types of teachers that they are, it's very convenient, for, the predicaments they get into. At a point, though, we're going to lose these two, and we're not getting any teachers back, pretty much. So...
Well, again, you recall that it started out as an educational program and then really morphed into kind of the science fiction thing that it is now.
Yeah.
It's not as educational. And again, a lot of the comments have been talking about, why can't we do just plain historicals nowadays without throwing in the aliens?
That's true. Pretty much everything in the modern episodes, like, there's nothing that does not have aliens. Like, everything, even the historical episodes will have aliens. And sometimes that's fine, sometimes it's but, I did write down the climax. This was objectively, I think, a better climax than the one we had in the first serial, where honestly they were just kind of pushing the Daleks around and stuff. This time, a group of 20 of them picked that one Dalek up, and they were like running out of the mines and beating them. And
I was really surprised at how many Daleks got destroyed. I mean, the one that got smashed by the truck, and then at least 2 at the end there, where when they were running out of the cave and they threw one down on the ground, and you saw his head came off, and then they ripped another one's head off. So, I mean, my understanding was that these Dalek machines were very costly, and to see them destroyed like that was kind of fascinating, considering all the comments we've heard about how there were so few actually of them because they were very expensive to build.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows? Maybe they made them sturdier, or maybe the show was just doing that well that they could afford to break a couple of them. So
I broke the Dalek.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I wrote down is the exit of Susan, which still works. It's just, once the doctor leaves, first time with the sound. That's probably why she didn't smile, is because she was like, oh, the sound. Finally. And then the episode ended before she got a chance. That's probably it. Because that is the first time the TARDIS has left and used the sound with it too. Yeah. So
I do, and again, I will say this for them. Again, directorially speaking, I would have had her at some point smile, but notice that when she walked away at the end, David put his arm around her and she put her arm around him. So, I mean, obviously she's accepted. She's, this is what I want. It's still sad, but there should have been some conveyance of hope there of, all right, yes, I have chosen this, and now let's roll up our sleeves and rebuild the Earth. So, it just would have been a nice little touch there at the end. Yeah. So, even if that wasn't in the script, doesn't say, Susan must smile or whatever. As a director, just that last little touch, I would have put in there just to say, it's going to be all right. Let the audience know Susan's going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because it's like, okay, it is her choice to stay there, but it's also technically the doctor's choice to leave her there because he locks her out, and even David says, like, he knew that you would never leave him, so he had to, make sure that you kept to your choice, basically. So that was interesting. Yeah. And also the information that he can double lock those doors, apparently. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I will say is, He left, and she got none of her shoes. Like,
yes, if that was your mother, she would have been beating down the door. Give me my shoes.
Yeah, it's like, just, open the door a bit, give the shoe, and then go, Like, because that's the thing. She says, like, he was saying, like, okay, well, I can mend this shoe, which, that'd be interesting. I didn't know the doctor could mend shoes, but,
when you're 900 years old, you learn all sorts of trades.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, I have a bunch of shoes, in the wardrobe and stuff. It's like, he left without letting her get any of her stuff off the TARDIS. Which, and another thing, a bit unrelated, but earlier when she cooked them all dinner and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, Susan's a really good cook. It's like, what? Since when? Because it's like, they kind of made the joke earlier. It's like, oh, Barbara can cook, and Susan, what do you do? I eat. It's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, well, okay, but on the TARDIS, they don't cook. They use the little knobs and stuff. And it's like, I guess she can cook. Well, that's good. That's convenient. So,
oh well.
But that's pretty much all I got written down.
Now, what was the name of the next serial?
It was like The Powerful Enemy, I think.
Okay.
So I think the next one is only a 2-parter, actually. Oh. So yeah, that'll be nice, short. Be able to get through that. And yeah, that'll be our first one without Susan. But before we get to that, we are going to be watching the next movie.
All right. I'm a firm believer in karma, so the fact that I have to sit through the second movie means that, in a past life, I must have done something really heinous. I must have, slapped the Pope or something, and now I'm being punished by having to watch the second Doctor Who movie.
Yeah. Yes. Next week, we will be watching Dalek's Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, which I believe is the full title. Yeah, they're a little off on the year, but that's all right. Well, we'll let it slide. I mean, I couldn't even get that right. But it's not even called Doctor Who. It's just the Daleks. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see if in that movie they end up leaving Susan behind there, because I remember in the first movie, Susan's like 8. So it's like, I don't see how they can get away with that same plot point if she's still an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But we will have to see. I still think it's going to be fun. See, I'm going to embrace the madness next time, and I'm just going to go with it. But yeah, we will get to that next week, and then we will get back on track with the serials. So that is pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next week for the movie Dalek's Invasion of Earth. See you guys then. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.